bum, brum ba ba bum, bum brum ba ba bum, bum brum ba ba bum, bum bum. Bum 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 ba ba da ba dum bum ba ba da ba dum da ba dum da ba da ba dum da ba da ba dum bum 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 bum. Hey Jazz, how you doing? I was doing a little mic volume test before I got anybody in the chat, but you're quick. You're too quick for it. All right. Did you do the old turn it off, turn it back on again fix? That seemed to work for me. I spent like an hour like wondering what the heck was wrong with this plugin or combination of plugins. The font wouldn't align. Anyway, how's it going, everybody? I'm Drifty from Driftwood Gaming, and nobody's here with me. I'm just home alone. That's why I'm starting a little bit early today, because I can. T took the baby, and my wife left me. No, just kidding. T took the baby with her out. She is taking somebody to the DMV, and she wanted to take the baby, and I'm like, hey, I gotta work. This is great. Go for it. So, yeah, we're live a little bit early today, which is fine. I couldn't put this project down last night. Like, I finished the live stream, and then obviously I had to do some chores and take care of baby, so it wasn't nonstop work, but whenever I got a break from everything that I had to do IRL, I would come back and just keep working on this project. And I banged my head against the keyboard for a while, really, and I was like, I need to figure out how I'm going to handle this, how I'm going to set up my little inventory in order for it to work right. And, like, obviously what I want is a fully, see, I made this menu here. I'm going to work on it some more, take this sword out because I don't like it. I made a few sprites and decided I don't want to use them. And then I was making this one, and then I had T look at it, and she gave me a couple of pointers. And now it looks even better. And I actually like this sword, so we're going to use this as our like starting weapon. Also, I made a GIF, and I put it on Twitter last night before I went to sleep. And then as soon as I posted it, I'm like, ugh, why did I leave this not transparent? I should have made it transparent. But I made it too transparent, so I'll fix that. I had the hardest time figuring out how to get this to do the pop-up, because I was using mouse X and mouse Y instead of device get mouse X to GUI or something like it was a function, like a long function like that. And basically it tracks where your mouse is at on the relative to the screen position, not relative to the X and Y location of where it's at on the map. So I had this problem where like I would highlight it and then it would show the text box, and then I'd walk away and the text box would disappear. And I had to highlight like right here to get this to pop up, because it was like referring to an X and Y location of on the map instead of actually on the screen. But I got that fixed about an hour or so of like trying to figure it out. I also made I came up with a lot of ideas and concepts for how I'm going to handle the inventory and stuff. Adapot Mert, hello, how are you doing today? Stream health looks good. Hopefully it doesn't have any DCing or issues with the ISP. No music as usual. Let me make sure that this isn't sending music. It should be muted. Good. That way you guys can listen to whatever you want. I can listen to whatever I want, and I don't have to worry about copyright claims. So yeah, this is good. I want to jump right into the project again and start fixing some stuff that I was working on last night at like midnight before I had to go to bed, and I was like, oh, I still want to work on it, but I'm so tired, and you know, got to keep that schedule. So went to bed with like a lot of ideas in my head, and I'm going to get to work now. So thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoy working on an RPG in GameMaker Studio 2. If you have any questions, let me know. I do have RPG Maker MV opened up, so I'll take any RPG Maker questions. It's still like, you know, I'm here to help you with that if I can be a public servant. I have Godot open as well. I'm going to start messing around more and more with Godot, so I might at some point just start a project in here, but I'm going to try to stay focused a little bit today. But yeah, I'm keeping it open as like it's accessible. Like that's why I keep my piano out and on. That's why I keep my guitars like tuned and hanging, so that like whenever the inspiration hits to do something with it, it's right there and available. Yeah, I think that's probably a smart move. I watch about one tutorial. Sometimes I watch a lot of tutorials, but usually it's like, okay, I didn't watch a tutorial on Godot today. I'm going to go watch a new tutorial on Godot. And I've watched about a dozen tutorials on Godot and some other videos where people are talking about why they like it and what it has to offer. And I'm really happy with what I've been seeing and the tutorials that I've watched. And I'm understanding more and more on Godot, and I plan to do some work with Godot in the future. But right now, I'm too much of a novice to like show that on a live stream. I just do that off camera. So I think I'm okay enough to like show stuff in GMS2, and obviously I can do anything I want in RPG Maker MV, barring creating. I can make plugins, but I suck at that, so I don't really kind of focus on that too much. I've made like 3 small, pointless plugins, but pretty much anything that you can design in the engine of RPG Maker MV, I can create a custom system for it, especially with Yanfly's flexibility. Maybe I couldn't do all that if it wasn't for Yanfly, because Yanfly has been so instrumental in making all the systems possible. But with the resources available, you can do like almost any kind of system in MV if the engine will allow it, and if it doesn't tank its optimization. But anyway, I'm fielding questions for whatever engines. And let's start with this project. I need to change the font. I was picking a font quickly just to get something out there, and I just picked a quick one. I'm going to change the font for this. I'm going to get rid of this image and start coming up with new items, making those in Sprite. We might make some new tile sets in Tile Setter. We'll create the art in Sprite and then make the blob in Tile Setter. But mainly we should be working on Driftwood and Dragons, the RPG inside of GameMaker Studio 2. Yeah. So here's the object. Actually, I didn't show that at the beginning. The resolution of the game is pretty small. I like this little small resolution. And it's also 16 by 9. So like if you do decide to go full screen, it does look like full screen. It just zooms in. So right here, when items drop on the ground, they obviously look bigger than the character because I just want them to be noticeable and not missed. I could make them 16 by 16, but if I do 32 by 32, it gives me the ability to make them more detailed. Maybe I'll switch them to, no, I'm not going to switch them to 16 by 16 because I've already built my menu 32 by 32. So, like, that's what this is going to be. Press escape and you open your inventory. Right now, it's all I have for a menu is the inventory. This is the second official day of working on this project, so considering this is only day number 2, we're already starting off in a really good position. Vero Claw 23, hello, how are you doing? You haven't seen this game. What is it about? It's a game I created the evening before yesterday. Not yesterday, but the day before yesterday evening. I started it and just put in a couple of images, and then yesterday I actually started working on it on the live stream for the first time, and then today's the second day. I am going to enter in a game jam starting tomorrow, so depending on the theme of that, I might kind of deviate away for a week or whatever, but I'm going to keep working on this project for sure. Hello, Fortnite Mapper, how you doing? Jay Babel. Oh, wait, Jazz says, yeah, I think I was too tired yesterday and messed up your stuff. I'm glad do the whole turn it off, turn it back on usually works. Jay Babel, he says, oh man, this looks super cool. I'm digging the inventory system in the corner. Nice, nice. Yeah, I'll show you how I did it, Jay. Do you use GMS too? I'll walk you through like what I was thinking and how I came up with it. And it's not as robust as I want it to be, right? Like, ultimately, I want to have a cool system where you walk over items. That's my alarm that says get ready for work. But we started early today. What I would want is to like be able to get items and then they appear anywhere in the inventory and you click on it and you move them around, but that's a lot of code, right? And I could figure it out, but it's going to be a lot of me looking at the code, just like banging my head against the keyboard. And for the scope of this project, I'm not trying to make this grand, huge scale RPG. I'm just trying to put out another project, right? So I'm going to go with what I figured out last night. Now this is a simple project. If I walk over it, boom, it becomes, now I own 2 of those. Okay, so what I can do now is set this back to 0 so we don't start with the broadsword. And I also want to change item 2. But first let's talk about the inventory system. So I've got this menu object, and I've got the menu being set as a persistent object that is spawned right on the title screen. And it can actually be put into the game anywhere you want as long as it's set as a persistent object and it's loaded before it's called, it'll work. So at the beginning of the game, you have the title screen. I'm loading in a bunch of instances. I'm loading in draw text, particle system, data manager, and menu. So I've also I'm working on getting a more cleaner, cohesive naming convention. So I've eliminated underscores now, and I'm going with like a lowercase first letter of what the object is, or if it's a tile set, it's a TS. If it's a S, it's a sprite. If it's for a particle, like it's a script, I'll set it as P. And I'm just kind of, for the most part, going to go with the same naming convention, with the exception of some scripts that I'm going to call as a function as if it was written in the game. So there's a draw text, and it's spelled out draw underscore text. But then I made this, I didn't actually make the script. I got it off of gmailscripts.com, and then I just kept adding arguments and whatnot so that it shows up in the engine the way I want it to. So I've modified it slightly. But it's essentially the same thing. It lets me draw text, but instead of drawing one line of text in one color, it lets me draw two lines of text, a line of text, and then another line of text underneath it that's like a shadow. And I can decide how see-through and what direction the shadow was cast, and etc. With one line of code. So that's why I put this, not following the naming convention that I've kind of set up for, but it works better with the built-in like draw text, shadow. So, I mean, there's some exceptions. For example, the particle system is breaking out of the naming convention that I'm using because I've imported it from previous project, before that, and I constantly update it. Let me go into my objects, and then I've set up some categories and some groups, and I've set up a category for the inventory, and I've decided how the inventory is going to work. I created it in Photoshop. Let me open it up and I'll show you. So originally I had this, and I was looking at this, and I was like, okay, well, this black border, it kind of looks crappy in game. And I was going to do a full black border where this was just a placeholder, and like it was going to be designed, right? Like there's maybe like stone or like some kind of thatch or something, like just like artistic design on the side. And I might still do something like that, but for now I got rid of just the black border and I went with something like this. And this I made, first I created this little 32 by 32 box, simple little box. I made that with a line tool, and then I copied that and pasted it in here. I snapped a grid, and then I held down Alt and I put it all over, and then I got like all of them like that. And so I decided I was going to have an inventory that shows the image. So I want to have graphical representation of every item in the game. I understand there's going to be a lot more work in Sprite and Photoshop, but it's going to make for a more robust and enjoyable game. I've always enjoyed being able to see that it's a sword, or look at the potion, or look at the boots, or whatever, you know, like just to see what it looks like. It helps me enjoy the game when I have graphical representations, of course. So I went with that. We can close this, and so now I've got this, which was a solid image, and I was going to make it like kind of transparent right here, which would be easy to set the opacity, but I was like, no, let me import it as a full, not opaque object. Opaque object, not transparent object. And then I can control the transparency level inside the engine. And that's what I did. And I made it too transparent last night because I was doing it in a hurry before I ran out of time. I had to go to sleep. So let me just change this back. I think 0.7 would make more sense instead of 0.5. Let me just look at that, how it looks. Maybe put the info box in the corner. Yeah, I'm not opposed to changing anything that I've already done. I'm okay with changing it. So I also need to put this text where it shows broadsword, not here. I don't want it to show the text if the player doesn't own the item. When we pick up the item, boom, it should appear there, and now we have it. So let me fix that bug real quick. I'll do the same thing in here. I'll take this conditional, and I'll cut it, and I'll put it inside the same that's conditional inside the draw GUI that says if we own a broadsword. And I'm controlling if we own a broadsword with a variable. So when the the menu object is created, it defines some variables. So every time I add a new item, I'll create a new variable with the exact item name and set it to 0. So you'll be able to have multiple of the same item in one spot. Are you trying to make an inventory? Yeah, I was trying to make a cool inventory that lets you pick up and drop items and like drag and drop, but the scope of this game dictates that I shouldn't invest that much time into it, and I need to crawl before I can walk and run, and that's sort of like a run solution. So the crawl solution is to make a basic inventory grid where each item has one location on it, and you can stack those and like highlighting them and whatnot. So this is like the beginning of the ultimate idea. Maybe a year from now, I'll have I'll have a better understanding of how to make things quicker. But and before I just jump in and try to make an MMORPG, this is a thing I see a lot. Are people who pick up RPG Maker MV, just a side tangent, they pick up an engine RPG Maker MV and they're like, I want to go straight for an open world MMORPG. I'm like, no, stop. Make a simple game. Make it simple. Keep it simple, stupid. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to keep it simple and make a simple inventory where you've got 80 slots and the first 16 are set up for 16 specific weapons, and each weapon will have its own slot, and so you'll have empty spaces in there if you're picking up different items. There will be random loot and whatnot, but it'll work, and that's what's important. It's definitely a solid beginning, says Jay Babel. He says the inclusion of stat blocks for the item is a nice touch. Yeah, I wanted that. I didn't want just an image. I wanted the player to go over and see it with the mouse and get some information on it. That way, like the player can see what it's actually doing and can do a comparison. It's not fun when you get like 5 weapons and you have no way to tell which one's stronger. Robert B says, I wish GMS2 made making inventory a bit easier. It's so code heavy in GMS. It is very much so, Robert B. I was messing with Godot, and I was watching Heartbeast's tutorial on how to do a simple dungeon RPG. It's very, very basic, but the simplicity to making menus and buttons and theming and styling your menus, it's so easy. It's so easy. So, like, once I get a little bit better at it, I'm going to go over how to make a lot simplified systems. Complicated things in one engine would be a simple thing in another engine. Like, for example, RPG Maker MV compared to GMS2. If you want to make a tile grid where you press up and the character moves up 32 pixels and whatnot, it's a little more complicated in GMS2, but in RPG Maker, you create a new project, you set your starting point, you press play, guess what? Your game already has a tile grid movement like that. So each engine has its strengths and weaknesses. The bonus to GMS2 is you can get a prototype together really fast, but it's very code heavy. In Godot, it's kind of confusing to understand at first, but once you understand a scene is like an object, and a node is just like a part of the scene, like it becomes a little bit less confusing. And a big strength of Godot is the simplicity to making menus and buttons and panels and text and interactable objects and layering and whatnot. It's really, really good. But it still doesn't do all the things that GMS2 can do, right? The speed, if I want to make a character move around on a map, I can do that a lot faster in GMS2. I can do that in a matter of a few minutes. Make a box, make an object, make some if keyboard check commands, and then boom, put them on the room, your object's moving around. So every engine has its own strengths and weaknesses, and I'm not here to say which one is better or which one is worse. For what you're doing, you want to pick the one that works for you. I have MV open here, if anybody needs something in that. I've got Godot open, even though I'm not using it right now. Like, I don't have a project open, is what I mean. I'm learning it nightly. I've got Photoshop open, I've got Sprite open, I've got Tilesetter open, and the main thing I'm actually working on is this project, Driftwood and Dragons. But I'm here to also interact with the audience. I love live streaming. I'm glad that you guys come and hang out. I really appreciate it. And if you have any questions about any of the things I'm doing, let me know. I love interacting, and I learn a lot from you guys, and I also learn by teaching. So if I can try to teach something, I'll probably get better at it. Black Bullet Studios, how you doing? I'm done writing the script for What You Challenge Me. Look in Discord. Oh, yeah, Black Bullet, you're Geeko. Oh, cool, man. I'll check it out later. Robert says I mainly use GMS2. I mainly use GMS2 now as well. Now that I've got this project released, I kind of put Natural Explorers, the next RPG Maker MV project, on the back burner for a little while. I'm not going to throw it in the garbage can, but I definitely needed a break from it. And I needed some freedom of these other engines. Anyway, I do want to get back to work on this, so I'm going to kind of jump back into this. Let me explain the menu real quick. We've got three things. We're declaring variables on our create. On the step, what we're doing is we have a variable called menu open, and it's set to false from default. If we're not on the title screen and the player presses escape, then it's going to say, it's going to run another nested if. It's going to also check, is the menu already opened? If it's not opened, then set this switch to true. And by menu opened, it's just a switch. At this point, it's really not doing anything, right? It's just setting a switch. So if this switch is false, then make it true. If we're not on the title and we press escape and the switch is true, then make it false. So all we did here was we made a switch that the player can toggle by pressing escape when they're not on the title screen. So with that ability to toggle a switch, we can do all kinds of stuff, right? So I made a draw GUI, graphical user input interface. So now that we have a switch that can control things, we're letting the player do things based on if a switch is on or off. So if the switch is on, then we're going to set our alpha, which makes an image like slightly invisible. So if you set your alpha to 0, it's completely invisible. If you set the alpha to 1, it's completely solid. It's not see-through. And then we're going to draw the inventory that I made in Photoshop right here. We're going to draw this on the screen. And it's the entire size of the game, the same resolution. So this lets me control where I want it by making a blank transparent image and like pasting this on top of the screen. And then after that, everything we draw after putting set alpha will be 70% or whatever you put see-through. The voice is echoing. Oh, I think that's on. Do you have two things open? Anyway, so after you use set alpha, anything you put after it will be set to that alpha. So I put it back to 1 so that things are solid. Thank you, Robert. And I'm declaring a few temporary variables here: XX, next, and YY. So this is a location. Now, how did I get this? Well, I went into Photoshop and I made this, right? And I've made these 32 by 32 exactly. And that lets me know the exact file size I need to make all of my items. And it's kind of hard to see like what your X and Y position is. I'm sure there's a way to do it, but I know for sure in Sprite it shows that. So what I did is I went into Sprite and I opened up this inventory. And then if you look at the bottom left of the screen, you see this little number. It's at 164 by 52. And as I move my cursor along the image, it changes. So I went to here and I zoomed all the way into the top left corner of where we're at, and this tells me where what pixel location that this entire 32 by 32 grid starts. So I know my starting point for objects is going to be 352 by 32. So this is where I got that number. Now it's important when you're trying to draw an image on top of a grid in this manner that you do one thing in GMS2. And that is to set the item's sprite to top left margin, or top left, what is it called? GUI, inventory, what is it called? Origin. Yeah, so we have the origin of the item in the top left, not the center, because we're not really going to be manipulating this item very much, but we do want to draw it at its top left corner so that when we select the same pixel location, it draws starting here and draws it across like that to the end. So that means when I draw this at the same location as 352.32 as shown right here in the bottom left corner, 352.32 on a 640 by 360 image, that it draws it perfectly across like that. And that's how I figured that out. I'm like, okay, cool, easy. Now I know how to put items down, and I know the next one will be exactly 32 pixels to the right. So I set and I set it up so that there's 8 in a row. I've got 8 of them in a row. I could have done 10, but I just went with 8, and I don't know why. I just felt like stylistically there was already a lot. I was debating ending with 72. But 80 inventory made more sense in my head. 72 was kind of this dumb, arbitrary thing, but that's what I went with. I don't think I'm going to have 80 items in the game, but I wanted to give myself room in case I wanted to keep adding new items. Hey, Ekaterina, how you doing? So this was my starting point. I made a temporary variable XX, which is going to be 352. That's where it's going to start. Then I made a next, because everything is set up to 32 by 32. I could have used YY, but just for like reading through the code, it made sense to have another one so that it's easy to read. You'll see what I'm talking about when I get to the mouse and stuff. So once I've got these temporary location variables set up, I can write those down. I didn't want to see a bunch of numbers, like do this numbers, because it gets very hard to tell where everything is at. So I wanted it to be like, draw this at XX plus next, or plus next times 2, or plus next times 3. Instead of just doing increments of 32 and having to write the numbers, it's just going to help me make a lot of items, locations, by doing it with these temporary variables. You don't have to do it this way, but it's kind of easier to read in the long run. So once we've got that set up, now I'm checking to see if the player has the item, and that's as simple as declaring a variable and setting it to 0 at the beginning. So the player has no items at the beginning unless you want him to start with them. And then say if the player has at least one of those items, so greater than 0, then do this stuff. And what stuff? Well, first of all, we're going to draw the sprite, and we're just drawing a sprite. Now, this isn't an object, but we do create an object as well. Hey, 3D modeler. How are you doing? Get a sprite, Nick. It's worth your money. Even if it was 20 bucks, I would say get a sprite. I got it for, I think it was $13 or 12 something. I don't remember exactly, but it's worth it, man. Like, I use it all the time. Every day I use a sprite. I mean, there's been days where I haven't used it, but you get my point. When I'm like game deving, I'm using a sprite. Yeah, so we're drawing a sprite, and we're saying the sub-image is 0, because that's just like, if you make it as an animation, you can start it on any frame you want. Even if it's an animation, you're probably going to put 0 here. But then, it's saying, where do you want to draw it? I didn't want to write 352, 32, and on the next item, what is 352 plus 32, right? I already know. 384, and like, I didn't want to do that, so I just wanted to draw it at XXYY, and then on the next one, I'll put XX plus next, and then YY, and then XX plus next times 2. It makes it really easy just to go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 instead of, or it'd go up to 7, instead of trying to do the math in my head, because you're more likely to be off a pixel or 2 or 8 or a digit or something that way. And then I set it up, I'm like, okay, when am I going to have to add plus next to Y? Well, I've got 8 across. So I put these in sections, commented sections of 8, just for help me like figure out how I'm going to do it. I had instance create layer here on code that's commented out. Don't need it. The reason why that was there was I was trying a ton of different ways to get this to work right. And I settle on this, and I kind of like the way that it's set up now. Do I have a block? Okay, that's the end. And then this is the first if. This is the second if. What is this one going? Oh, because I have a third if. Boom, this has got to be here. And then this is for this one. Yep, gotcha. Yeah, so the first set of items, and the reason why I sectioned them off so I can keep track of what to add to the Y. So everything in the first 8 will be YY, but then everything in the second 8 will be YY plus next. Everything in here will be YY plus next times 2. Next time 3, next time 4, next time 5, and that makes it easy to figure out where to draw it. Yeah, Sprite is cheap. It's only like 13 or 14 bucks, I think. 15 bucks, still worth it. Let's see. Okay, the next thing that I was doing was trying to figure out, this is for getting the text pop up. This was really complicated for me to figure out because I was using mouse X and mouse Y. Now, what that does is it tracks the location of where your mouse is at on the actual map, not the location of the screen. So typically, if you're in a 640 by 360, then like this would be 0, 0, and this would be 640, 360, where my mouse is. In the center would be half of each, right? 320 by, 180. But the mouse X and mouse Y isn't tracking like that. Mouse X and mouse Y is checking the X and Y location on the map itself. So in this top left corner, then this is true. This is in the middle, this is 0, 0. But now, as we move the camera down, this is no longer 0, 0. Like my mouse isn't moving, but the mouse X and mouse Y location is changing. So I had an issue where I was trying to draw this little icon. Of course, I started with 0. Let me pick this up. I was trying to draw this, but it kept drawing it on the mountains here, like, and it wouldn't, like, my mouse had to be over here to draw it. So the switch I made was, instead of mouse X, mouse Y, there's a line of code called device mouse X to GUI and device mouse Y to GUI. And I replaced mouse X and mouse Y with that line of code, and voila, it now works. I can move my camera around, and I don't have to be on, it doesn't matter where I go. If I hover over it now, it's going to find it. But how did I figure out the logic for that? Let's look at that. So there's 4 things I have to check. Since this is not actually being drawn as an object, I can't just go into the object and say when mouse enter, mouse exit. Even though I do that with the object version of this, because we do have the object of it as well. But we're not drawing the object in the inventory. We're drawing a sprite and we're putting it in a specific location. So we can't use mouse enter, mouse leave. But there's a way you can get around this if you check the mouse X, mouse Y location, but you have to use device mouse X to GUI, like I said. And you use 0 to decide what mouse you're referring to, because like I have a little controller here that controls my computer. It's got like a little mobile keyboard, it's got a power button and all that, and I control it from when I'm in bed watching something on my screen. Or if you have a game controller, it could be set to a mouse as well for some, it could be configured that way. Take care, 3D modeler. How do you manage all your work? With good code. I try to with clean descriptors inside of the comments. Try to code it very well. Yeah. Anyway, so you're gonna check 4 things. You're gonna check if the mouse is within the pixel space of XX, which is going to be 352. Let me go to illustrate with Photoshop. So we wanted to show the text pop-up for this first item when the mouse is within this box, right? So we have to check 4 things. We have to see if the mouse X is greater than this location. We have to see if the mouse X is less than or equal to this location. We have to see if the mouse Y is greater than over here. And if the mouse Y is less than right here, because remember as you add, it goes down. So less than would go up. So we have to basically check, is the mouse within this box? So we do 4 things, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's what I did. We have 4 things. Device mouse X to GUI 0 is greater than equal to XX, is less than equal to XX plus next, which is just adding 32. And these 2 are these are, they're saying like this has to be true, and this has to be true, and this has to be true, or it won't match, like the entire thing will return as false and it won't show any of this. So we're making four if conditions inside this one condition. All 4 of these have to match, right? You have to be within X, X, Y, Y, and then if you do, as you see right here, I'll read it, greater than equal to X, less than equal to X plus next, greater than equal to Y, less than equal to YY plus next. And that's all 4 of those will say, okay, if the mouse is in that box, it'll draw it. Now for the next pop-up, I'll have to change the space, right? So it would be XX plus next, and then right here, XX plus next times 2 for the second item. But now that I understand how that works, it's easy. You just add add it there. Just keep track of where you're at. That's why I commented these in sections of 8 to keep track of where I'm at. So I could even go like this, item 001, and then at the end, for right here, what do I have show text for? Oh, I put this in here. Anyway, this would be item 002. And I would do the same thing if whatever the name of the item, then you do the same thing. So I'll basically just copy paste it and change a few things. I'll just add to the location that I'm checking and change the description. But anyway, let's go back and let's continue where we're at here. So I'm setting a font, which I decided I wanted to change. So let's try to pick a different font. I like this one because it was small and it would fit on this lower res game. But I want something a little bit thicker and clearer, a little more thick boy. Power Green Narrow, I like it because it's kind of pixel arty. Let's make it 16 and see if it looks good right there. So now I don't have to change the code, I changed the thing that it's referencing and it'll make the font bigger. It may not fit the box now, so I'll have to hand design the box. That's the hardest part of this, is the shadow box behind it. So I'm setting the font, I'm setting the color of the font, I'm setting the alpha of the box that I'm about to draw, and then I use draw rectangle to draw a box. So right here I've got, this is the most jank part, because it's going to be different if I have a lot of text to fill out. I wish I could come up with a script that wraps around it, and I might in the future, but right now this is just the kind of the dirty way of doing it. And this is what I like Godot for compared to GMS2. To make a box, shadow box behind all the font, I have to do stuff like this and put in numbers and hope it fits right, and then change the numbers 100 times till it works. And then I set the alpha back to 1, and then I'm doing draw text shadow, which is a script I made, which is basically just draw text and then another draw text underneath it. So we're putting all of this at a specific location. Now I can change where the text is being drawn. Right now I have it set to draw above it, wherever it's at right now. So if you hover over it, the text pops out like on top of it, in a Diablo-esque style. But I could keep it so that all the text pops up in one spot. I don't know. I'm going to leave it like this for now, but I might change it. We'll see. But what is it saying in here? I'm putting in the X and Y location, the string that I want it to draw, and to put it on a new line, you do /n. So I'm saying broadsword, and then on the next line, put in attack power plus 10, and on the next line, put in the number of you owned plus. I'm putting in I'm passing a variable, but you can't just use an integer inside this. You have to do a string. So you have to convert this integer variable into a string, and then it'll work inside the show text, because text shows the string. And then I'm saying that draw it in white font with the black shadow with 90% transparency and opacity, and then with a shadow distance of 1 and at the angle of 315, so it's kind of going to the bottom right. And that's it. That's the thing. Now you see all that you have to do just to do a simple menu where you have it, every box is specific for this one item. It becomes a lot more confusing and convoluted if you want to pick up items and drop items somewhere, or check to see if you have those items, or click, drag, drop stuff. It's a lot harder. This is pretty simple if you think about it, but it is quite a few things to make it all work together. So we'll continue making items. I'm going to put the first set of 16 items are going to be weapons. So I might make one more weapon and then make a potion or something. I'm thinking armors would be next, so I would put potions closer to the end and stuff. I guess we'll start potions at 64, and we'll have the 9th set and the 10th set. That's 16. 16 potions. That'll be good. Alright, so now that we know how that works and I've described it, simple system. Let's look at the object. So that was drawing a sprite. But in order to get the broadsword, the player is going to have to walk over it. So let's look at the object broadsword. Now, even though the player is 16 by 16, I decided I wanted the images to be 32 by 32 just to give more ability to make sprites look, I don't know. I probably should have done 16 by 16, but I'm already going to stick with 32 by 32. I'm too invested. Because it's funny the items are twice the size of the player. That's okay. I think players will forgive that. You'll just get higher resolution images. Let's see. All right, let's start at the beginning. So we're showing a description. We're setting a Boolean value of show description, set it to false when it's created. And then when this thing collides with the player, we're adding 1 to the variable that's stored in the menu, and we're destroying this object. And that's basically how we add the item. We're also doing a show description. We're toggling the show description if the mouse is on it. So we're using, instead of having to do mouse X, mouse Y, all that stuff, it's easy to do this. You could do it in the step event with a mouse X, mouse Y as well, but it's easy just to go add event, mouse, and then mouse enter and mouse leave. These two events kind of just handle the mouse X for you. So if the mouse is hovering over it, we set a Boolean value to true. And then when the mouse leaves, we set the Boolean value to false. So that's easy. We define a Boolean toggle by putting the mouse over on it and moving a mouse away. Now that we've made a way for the player to control a switch, we can do stuff with that. So whenever we add the draw, we have to do draw self, otherwise it won't show itself. Everything has an invisible, everything with a sprite has an invisible draw step that's got just draw self on it. However, when you add a draw event, you have to, it removes that invisible one because you're overwriting it. So you have to just put in draw self. Now we're able to toggle that show description Boolean easy. It's off by default. Put the mouse on it, it's on. You move the mouse away, it's false. So we can make a show text, right? So we take that same code that we just went over inside the menu when we're hovering over a sprite, checking the X and Y location of device mouse X at GUI, except now we're just saying if this switch is on, put it right here. And now we're not referencing XX, we're referencing the exact location of the item, X, Y, X, and Y. So the code is the same, basically, except you're replacing your temporary variable of XX and YY. Hence the reason why I wanted to create those temporary variable XX and YY, so it's copy-pastable between drawing it as a sprite and drawing it as an object. So we make it the box mostly transparent, and then we show a box, and then remember it draws everything in order. So if we say draw a box and then draw text, it's going to put the text on top. If we say draw text and then a box, it's going to put the box over the text. So I put it in that order. We set the alpha back, and I'm drawing text shadow, which is just to draw text, like I said. Same stuff, same thing as in here, except now, instead of saying broadsword, I do have to say omenu.broadsword, because broadsword is a value of that's stored inside of the menu, right? That's here. So if I try to say broadsword from inside of this item, it's going to be like, what is broadsword? We don't know what that is. Crash. So we say, oh, look inside this object and find this value. And we're drawing that as a string. Same thing. So it's kind of copy-paste, but the couple changes. You delete that, and you add something here. And that's how you handle that. And now we have objects that are collidable. When the player collides with them, it adds to the variable and gets rid of these. Now what we could do, actually, let's make it a change. Let's make an adjustment. Let's make a change to it. I thought it was very lackluster when you picked up an item. It did everything functionally, but it didn't look good. It didn't sound good. We'll do sounds and music at the end. So let's make this kind of cooler. When the player gets the item, right before it's destroyed, let's do a particle effect. So should we make a new particle effect? Should we make a sprite for it? I think I want to do a sprite for it. Let's create a sprite. We're going to call it S particle get item. And I'll make this a very small 8 by 8, and I'll center this one. I'm not going to animate this because I'm going to animate it with the particle engine. So it'll be one frame, index 0, and that's it. And I'm going to make this a little circle that kind of just does a little spin. Oops. Let's pick a cool little color like this little yellow. And then let's see, I want it to go this way, this way, this way, okay. And then maybe like sort of, not exactly white, but kind of white, with a little more yellow. That's kind of weird. Let's try this again. There we go. So we've made like a little sparkly thing. Good enough. Very hard to see, just a little tiny thing. I'll make a new category because I'll probably make more like this. So I'll add another group, and we'll call this Sprite Particle Get Item. Oh wait, no wait. This is Particle. Sprite Particles. Put this in there. That's the group. I'm going to try to stay organized with a solid naming convention and categories and whatnot. Scripts. Okay, and let's open up our particle system where we've created a bunch of particles. Let me use one that I've got commented out because it's using a sprite already. So level quest. What did I call this one? Health pot. I guess that's no. Pop out. Rasp. Take damage. Let's go with this one. So I'm going to uncomment this rasp one. I've showed the way I make particles several times. I'm going to change this to sprite. What did I call it? Particle get item. But now that we're creating this particle, we also have to destroy it when the game ends. So where I've commented out rasp, I need to uncomment that. So now it is destroying that type at the game end. There's a application called Particle Designer that lets you create these and copy paste the text, and you can name them what you want. I'll probably be messing with it a little bit, but I don't need to right now. Okay, let's start closing stuff. Stay a little organized here. What do I need to have open? This item. So what we're going to do now is we've got the particle created in the system, but we don't have an emitter, nothing that's going to make the particles show. So I like to make scripts for these to call them when I want them to happen. So what I do here is I create a script. Actually, I'm going to just, I'll delete this. I'm going to duplicate one. I'm going to duplicate the most recent one I put in here. Boom. And this time I'm going to say get item. That's going to be the name of this. Except I've named it rasp in the particle system. Let me open that up and change rasp. I'll just press Control F and I'm going to type in rasp. That's what it was before. And I'm going to click this button and replace all instances of rasp with get item, just like that. and I'm going to check this replace all. Every time it finds rasp, it's going to change the text to get item. Boom, easy to fix. Now I go to over here where I see rasp, and it doesn't find it anymore, obviously, but we're going to put in get item right here, and it'll find that. So now we just renamed it. That's all we did. So in here, I'm going to do particle get item, and for here, I could have done the Control F thing as well, but it's so much easier on this one. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating some temporary variables so that I can pass them in as arguments, and then I'm doing particles create. I'm accessing the particle system, which is your index. I'm selecting an x and y location, which is the x and y that I put into the arguments that I pass into the function when I call it. And then I'm saying use this particle that's in this object, and then the temporary variable is the third argument, or argument 2, which is the amount that I put in. So now, instead of having an emitter, I'm using a script to call particles whenever I want. So now when I want to play particles, it's as simple as typing in the name of the script, p get item, and I pass in 3 variables. I pass in the x location that I wanted to play at, the y location, and the amount of particles I want to play. Since this is going to happen one time, I'll put a higher number of particles, but if this was on a step phase, I'd put a lower number of particles. So I'm going to say x, y, because remember when we use x or y, it's referencing the local x and y. So wherever this item is at, play an x and y, but it'll also reference the index of the item, which is at 0, 0. It's on the top left, right? The origin of the item, not the index, that's the frame. The origin of the item, which is in the top left. So do I want the particles to play from the top left of it, or do I want it to play from the center? So if I want it to play from the center, then I do have to add to this. So let's just add a plus 15 to each of these, right? So now it goes 15 across and 15 down, and this centers the particle display. And let's do 24 of these particles. It's probably way too many, but let's just see what it looks like when I pick up this item now. So we've got our, we changed our font. That looks pretty good. Doesn't look too bad. Broadsword, attack power plus 10, own 0. We don't have it here, but if we go across, I mean, this could be opened or closed. Boom. Did it play the particle effects? I didn't even notice. I was looking at my menu. Get item. When it collides with the player. Let me try again. I didn't see a particle. I wasn't watching. I'm just going to go like this. Boom. It didn't play a particle. So let's see what's going on here. Why did it not play a particle? The particle system's working because when we load our game, I've got particles being played on the menu. When you press right here, it says press enter. This little sparkly thing. This is a particle script the same way running on the step phase. So let me show you. Yeah, but that's supposed to play a particle. I'll show you the way that is working for the start. I think I'm using it on the draw text object. So on the step event, I'm calling particle portal sparkle, and I'm saying pick a random range for the x, then pick a random range for the y, and the range that I'm specifying is within where the text is being drawn. And then I'm saying play 4 particles every frame. So that's what's happening there, and I'm doing the same thing with with that right here. It's the same exact thing. Let me take a look at the get item script. Part system 1 would be top particle layer. There doesn't appear to be any syntax errors because it would crash if it did. Particle. At one point I had issues spelling it right, so I don't think that's it this time though. Part system 1 is top particle layer, and that's set up to true. It was a lot of show and tell, but I imagine at some point we're going to hit bugs and have to figure out why is it not working. Let me do something real quick and change, instead of using this S particle get item. Nope, I spelled it right. It's because it's red. It's it finds it. Let me just go like this. Let me put in PT, which is a particle built in, and we have a bunch of built-in particles, right? Let's just do particle shape pixel right here and see if it has a problem with the image that I drew or if it's something else. Okay, so you saw the particle play when I just use a particle pixel. Let me make a dev object on menu. I think I already put something on menu. Menu's going to have a lot, so I'm not going to mess with menu. What is draw text? Is that having a... Here we go. This is to restart the game. I'm going to take this code that restarts the game out and put it on a new object. This is going to be object keybinds, and make a step, and on the step it's going to check to see if we press a button, and if it does, it's going to restart. Check for inputs, restart the game. If we press enter, we can say enter equals restart the game as a comment, or I can say enter restarts the game, because, yeah, alright, check for inputs. But we also have to, oh, we're already referencing data, so that's fine. And it's not doing anything else there. Okay. So another command I want to do is to spawn in an item real quick, just for testing. Instance, create, layer, we're going to spawn at oPlayer.x plus 64, oPlayer.y. It doesn't have to add anything there, and we're going to spawn the object. Should probably spell instance create layer properly. On the instances layer, instance, yeah, that's plural. Object, what am I calling it? Item 001 underscore broadsword. Yep, that one. And we'll say if, what did I mess up? Hold on. Nothing. Okay. If keyboard check pressed virtual key insert. So if I press insert, it'll spawn it. It's going to spawn it like to the right of the player, just so that I can test the particle and show it off a little bit. So I press enter. Whoa, what's happening? Oh, I made a new object called keybinds, and this isn't restart the game. This is in... I picked the wrong thing off here. That's fine. Let me go back to draw text in menu. So draw text, is this where I had it? Menu. Is it on menu? Okay, menu's going to have a ton. I don't want to convolute that. It was in draw text is where I had this. So I'll put this back. If we press enter and we're not on the title, then go, yeah, like that. That makes sense to put that there. And this is drawing text for this is the whole, and it needs to be there. So I don't need that open anymore. Where was my restart the game code? I put in an F5 to restart the game. I don't remember where I put it. That's great. It was either, oh, data. I put it in data, didn't I? Yep. Put it in data. Store data, duh. Simple. So I'm going to cut this from data and delete the step because it doesn't need it right now. Close data object and open up the keybinds. I'm just going to set it as a controller as well. Boom. Sorry for that. It's kind of just like trying to organize. Spawn item. Now I also have to drag and drop keybinds. Set it as a persistent object, and we're going to drag and drop keybinds here. So now keybinds is another object that's going to spawn when we enter the first map, and it'll, as a persistent object, it will persist through every room thereafter. Ooh, I think I need to take a little breather and take a nice drink of water. How are you guys doing today? How are your projects coming along? What are we listening to? I've got some SNES retro music playlists going on in the background, and I find it very good. Very good. SNES was one of my favorite systems of all time. Alright, let's pay attention to the particles. And the sprite we used to draw the particle doesn't seem to be working right. So boom, that's the particle shape that we... So I spawned another one just to look at it. Boom. Boom, 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 boom. I feel like there should be two particles played. One particle on the item and then one on the player. And let's go into the particle system. Got the keybinds, done with that. Done with the menu for right now. Let's open up the particle system. Let's go down to get item. Okay. Now get item is a part, type create, get item, and it works perfectly fine, except when we put in a sprite right here, which we should be allowed to do. Sprite, particle, get item. It doesn't appear to do anything. Animation, stretch, random. Let's do 1, 1, 1 and see what happens. Nothing. Insert, insert, insert. Nothing's happening. It's not playing anything. Even though we're obviously drawing sprite, nothing's happening. And I wonder why. Maybe it's because it's so small it becomes non-existent. I think that's what it is. We need to change the size again. So let's change the scale from 0.1 to 1. I think it's drawing sprites so small that they appear non-existent. That's what it is. Okay, that's what it is. Okay, good. So this is also size. Let's change these from 0.1 to 1 and see what happens there. Whoa! Oh my god. That is not the particle we want. Holy moly. Okay. Jay Mabel says, doing well, working on an RPG Maker game right now, but learning a lot about how GMS works from watching this. Cool. Seems like a cool program. It is. It's expensive, though. If you don't have the money to throw at it, check out Godot. It's really, really good and free. Cool Source says, I finished my Kingdom Hearts Discord server, and it took me all of yesterday and today. Cool, man. That's good. Post a link to your server and the self-promo channel of my Discord server. Links in the description below if you want to get some more people. Jeremiah Black says, hi, Drifty. I started over because of one of your games yesterday. Made me realize how overcomplicated my ideas were. I've thrown out so many games because I've overhauled them and completely made them into overly huge projects and that they didn't need to be. So that does happen quite often. You keep adding. It's called feature creep. You keep adding these little things, adding more to it because you don't have a solid, cohesive idea of what it should be that you keep adding. Well, it has one of these systems. You got a farming system, a mining system, a fishing system. Oh, you can do this. I made an auction system. Okay, enchantment system. And this feature creep comes in and it just seizes your project and it has no direction. It's just a bunch of little mini games and it doesn't really have it's not a good project anymore. That's sort of what happened with Natural Explorers, feature creep. And it paralyzed me because I didn't know where to go with it. It had a battle system, it had a farming system, enchanting system, mining system, node-based strategy RPG type thing. It had too much. Like you go around claiming nodes and you keep getting items, and I didn't know where it was going. It had a battle system. It had a custom encounter system in the graveyard. It had a whole. It had too much, right? So I totally feel. With what you're talking about, Jeremiah Black, and try to narrow that scope down. Just get it to be like, it needs to be something simple like this, like this, like this. And then trust me, once you finish it and you release it, you're going to feel so good. Even if it isn't this massive dream game, you're going to feel good. So make it small, make it good, and release it. And then you'll get like an itch. You're like, I want to make another game real quick. I'll make another game, make another game. And then you have like 10 games in your portfolio and you actually have something to show for your time spent. And you'll be happy. So, yeah, good on you, Jeremiah. Joni Spam, main issue is the art. Trying to do the best can't seem to do it right. You know, don't let that hold you back, though. Use programmer art and keep going at it. Sprites, I'm doing all from scratch. I've been doing that too. In this project, everything is kind of self-made. But when I make it and it doesn't look quite right, I tinker with it a little bit. But then I use it either way. Like for example, let's look at the mountains. They look terrible as mountains, but they look more like walls to me. Oh God, we got to fix that particle effect. They look more like walls to me. That's what my wife said. They don't look like mountains. They look like just like you're on a bridge type thing, and these are walls, like stone sides of a mountain, not like mountains that's raised, but mountains that are going down. And I'm like, okay, good. At least I can use them for that at another point. So I'm going to change these out eventually, probably very soon, so that they actually look like mountains here, not like we're on a little bridge and on top of a mountain somewhere, and like these are like the sides of the stone walls. I don't know. Anyway, I know that these don't look like what I want them to look like, so I'm going to have to fix these. But I'm still using them right now, right? I'm not going to let it hold me back. I'll just use this programmer art until I get a better version. So don't let it hold you back. Skepsis says that's where I spend so much time is art. I need to do just basic placeholder art first so I can actually get some gameplay going. Absolutely, Skepsis. Okay, so let's change this size back down a lot. I think we were closer to where we wanted to be with, oops. When we just changed the scale up. So let's change the scale up again, and we'll just set the scale to 2 and take a look at what happens here. Whoa, that's not bad. Let's throw some more out there. It's a little much still. It's still too big, and it's too powerful. But it does look cool. Like the actual wiggle and animation of like, boom, you got the item. Boom. I'm wondering, should we replace this to have the animation play on the player, or where the item? I think on the item makes more sense, right? Boom, because the item also just disappears, and it didn't feel like very satisfying to just see it disappear. Now, at least if it plays a particle effect, even though it's too much right now, we'll change the scale. Let's say 1.5, 1.4, 1.4. we'll do like this, like this, like this, like this. How many frames do you have for your walking animation? 0. Or 1. At 1. Yeah, at 1. That's still too much. That's way too much. I reduced it, but I also increased the starting size, so the multiplication. The math turned into making it bigger, actually. Because I increased these, and then I reduced these. So let's go back to this, and make this smaller. And then we make this smaller, too. Actually, they need to be a lot smaller. Boom. 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 We're getting there. We're getting there. Still a little bit too much, but just slightly. I think these at 10 made the most sense. And then maybe put this at... let's try that. Let's just try that right there. That's going to make it quite a bit smaller because that's like the base multiplier. Boom. 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 Getting there, getting there. Let's put this at 1.1. What else can I change? Let's change the life so that they disappear quicker. They're going to disappear a little bit quicker. Change the blend mode. Maybe that'll be... It's going to look completely different now that we change the blend mode. Well, it actually looks very similar. More of what I wanted. I don't know. Does it still seem like too much? When you pick up an item, does it is that satisfying but like not overly particle-y? Boom. 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 I kind of feel like it's still too much. Let's make it smaller again. Let's do 0.7. 0.7. Blend mode, additive 0. Reducing the life on it was good though, because it went away quicker. That looks more like an attack because I changed the blend mode. We went from... I think I liked better the brighter color. So let's go back to additive, blend mode, and reduce the size further to 0.5. And reduce the life just a little bit more. It's over particly. Yeah, I agree. That's why I'm trying to get it. Hey, it's getting there. Boom. 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 It's still thick. It's still a thick boy. Let's make it 0.3. And I think that's probably closer to what we want. Let's also, you can make them very minimal and then stack two particle effects together, so you don't have like one big crazy particle effect. You have a couple of small little minor particle effects. So let's throw another one in there, but just add a single, or maybe we can reduce the numbers as well. So what have I already defined as a script that I can use quickly? The portal sparkle. We're using that on the intro. But so I don't want to like reuse the same particle effects for multiple things. But what I can do is use this charge one. Let's see. This one can be much. This could be a lot too. But anyway, let's go back to the item that we're picking up and add p charge. We'll say x plus 15. Y plus 15, and then we'll just say like 4 and reduce this down to like 16. Ooh, check that out. Boing, 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 boing. I like it better. Less particles. I feel like the lifetime on the charge is too much. Let me just adjust the particle a little bit. Charge is one of the first ones I made way back in the ditty. Let's change the lifetime to 20 and 35 or 30. So it's a lot less. Let's change this to 30. The scale can go down a notch, 0.5. This can go to 0.8. And besides just that, let's reduce the number of these down to 3. I just want it to feel satisfying. I like it. I think there's too much wiggle on the other one. Obviously we can be here messing with this all day, but I'm going to just settle for what it looks like very, very shortly. Where is the one that has like a orientation? Angle, wiggle, angle relative. So let's go like this. And then I think this is final. Current final version of when you pick up an item. It works. It feels good. It no longer just has an item just disappearing with no seeming thing. We've pressed escape, you can see we picked up like 17 of these. What do you guys think about the new font? The pixel art font? It's about the right size. It's legible. It's got room to make it bigger. But what this does is it lets me... I think it's fine. Cool. Alright, we're making some progress. Let's move on. I got a notepad here with some ideas. Dice rolling mechanics, save to file load system. We don't have a long enough thing. There's not enough to do to worry about saving and loading yet. Dice rolling mechanics, title screen tutorials. There's not anything to teach the player yet, except escape opens the menu. And we are teaching the player pressing enter starts the game. Sound effects and music, custom, that's at the end. Text pop-up box. We need to do a text pop-up box. Not just like hovering, but like a show text. If you're coming from RPG Maker, you know, like the basic show text. We have to create that. Make a menu with inventory, stats, and skills. Okay, well we did the inventory. We got an inventory set up. So I need a menu that shows stats and skills. We don't have any stats. We don't have any skills yet, so we still got a long way to go on that. Text pop-up box. All right. You want to see him attack with 17 broadswords? Swish, swish. I think I'm going to not have an action RPG. I'm going to make it a turn-based RPG because I'm insane. Like, it would be easier with this setup just to, like, have something spawn and make an object the hitbox. But, like, what I want this to be is more like what I've known as traditional RPGs, except my own little spin and using a different engine in it and make it very small, is I want it to go into a battle, like a random encounter type thing. So I'll have to do a whole battle scene, and then, oh, another thing I want to do with the items is make them right-clickable. So, with... Where did I put... Oh, it's over here. With an inventory, I'm going to just put in right-click Options. I write it down because I forget everything I do. I'm like, what did I want to do? I had a great idea. Yeah, sure you did. Write it down, or Pixar, it didn't happen. I want to be able to right-click on items and say, like, equip, or right-click on it and say unequip, or right-click on it and say drop, right-click on it and stuff. So I want stuff to happen when I right-click on it. Or even, like, details, and it opens another thing. But the details one is later on, because the moving the mouse over handles that. Alright, so conceptualizing time. This is the part where I bang my head on the keyboard and hopefully something happens. Let's close our particle system. Let's close this object. Oh, we could add another item. In fact, let's do that first. While I'm thinking, I'm going to go into A-Sprite. Maybe this will help me clear my head. And open up a new 32 by 32. And we're going to make another item. Let's pick a palette. No, not this palette. What about this one? That could work. I have about a 5 pixel border, and you can overlap your border if you need to, but I kind of want to keep 4 of those. One, two, three, four, 5. So this is going to be all the way on the border. Even though it looks better with the longer handle, I have to cut this down like that. That way I've got 1, 2, 3. This still 4, 5. The border is going to be all the way down here. But I mean that'll work. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this will touch the border and this will touch the border. That'll work fine. Cool. Can you add a joke weapon? I mean, I'm sure I could. This is good right now. Let's save this as... This will be the actual sword too, the long sword. So we had the broadsword. I've made lots of different ones you can see here, but I'm going to trash most of these. Well, these 4 anyway. I'm going to call this one the longsword, but I'm going to call this one underscore longsword. Export. Yeah, I'm going to overwrite that. And then I go into GMS2, and I go to my sprites under inventory, Actually, I already have the longsword, but I'm using a different sprite, so I'm going to re-import this with the new one I just created. Boom. There we go. Let's see what it looks like in game. That looks super nice. Thank you. Boom. So there's the broadsword. The longsword, which looks significantly different. It looks like, because the handle is smaller and is put farther in the corner, it's actually the same spot. But I think just because the handle is smaller, it gives the illusion that the sword is bigger and longer. Right? So we have our broadsword, which is a thicker sword, and then we have our longsword, which is kind of thinner. Even though they're about the same, the handle size makes this one look longer. And that's kind of what I was going for. Plus the different color handle and the different color gem will kind of signify that they're different. So these are very similar things, but they also at the same time look very different, and I'm happy with that. So we've got a broadsword and we've got a longsword. And I guess what we can do is change the attack power and the amount of AP they consume to use. It's all about the hilt. A rubber chicken. I can make a chicken knife. And it's stronger with the number of times you run away. No, that's Final Fantasy, what, 5? Final Fantasy 5 did the chicken knife. Anyway, let's program it. Like, okay, we've made the art for it. Let's program it now. Let's code it in. What do we have to do? We have to go to our menu. That's where we're handling this, and we have to go longsword equals 0. So we've defined a new variable on our draw GUI. I'm going to take this entire thing, copy it for simplicity, and overwrite this, and just paste this. So now we're saying if the menu's opened, and if we have a longsword, or at least one longsword, then do all this stuff and change this to longsword. That's also item number 2, longsword. And another thing has to change. We're not going to draw it at XXYY. We're going to draw this at XX plus next YY, because that's 32 pixels to the right. And for the text pop-up, I suppose for simplicity I can go like this. It still looks good. It still breaks it. It also makes it like one line for each item. This whole script will be 80 lines shorter. Okay. And the place that we're going to check for the mouse is also different. We have to add plus next for that. We're going to subtract. It has to be less than, no, we're going to add to this, less than next times 2. So we use parentheses here so that it should actually just work without the parentheses, but I want to make sure it does next times 2 and then adds to that number. And then for the y, it's the same because it's still checking the same y location. What about this? What about this? What about this? This is all fine. Then we change this to say what we want it to say. This is the longsword, attack power plus 8, or we'll say plus 7. Maybe we have to add another thing. And we need to abbreviate to save space. So we'll say ATK plus 7, AP cost, APC will be 8 action points cost, I haven't really thought about how I'm going to do all these, but I'll figure it out on the way there. So weapons will have an attack power, but they'll also take an action point cost, so that using the dagger, you would expect it to hit not as hard as a two-handed axe, right? So why would you ever use a dagger? Well, maybe you want to hit 3 times instead of 1 time in a turn. With your two-handed axe, you'd get 1 attack with your turn, and it would take most of your APC, most of your AP. But a dagger, you do less damage, but you hit 3 times, or what? Something like that. So the broadsword will do more attack. We can say ATK plus 10, and then the action point cost will be, I don't know, 3. It's an arbitrary number for now. And then this will be 2. And we'll make the attack power 6. So the broadsword is going to hit for 10, but it takes 3 points. And this is going to hit for 6, but it takes, wait, does that make sense though? We want them to be around the same. So if I spent 6, that would be 20. If I spent 6, that'd be 21. So essentially the longsword is a little bit better than the broadsword, except I haven't figured out the damage calculations. So maybe you want a higher attack because you'll have diminishing returns with the lower attack. Maybe you won't do any damage if your enemy has too much defense, then you need to have higher attack weapons. Something like that. So you'll be able to swing this more, but you won't hit as hard with it. So it's different in that it's not just like, well, it's got a higher attack, the other one is obsolete. They still have their uses. There we go. I like that little idea. Anyway, I can always iterate on it and change on it as we go. We need to change what we're drawing. We don't want to draw the number of broadswords we have. We want to convert to the string the integer value of what we have in longsword, and show that as the number that we own. And XX and YY for the box will also have to be changed, I believe. So for this rectangle, it would be XX plus next. And then YY is the same. XX plus next. YY is the same. See, these arbitrary numbers here, I hate to see them in here. But like for now, unless I come up with another kind of convention with variables, which I might, I'm going to have them in there. I imagine I'm going to have to change them a lot. That's why I haven't set them in stone as with temporary variables, because I'm going to want to draw more text than will fit. So there's our broadsword. Oh, we have no way to show. We have no way to show our longsword because we don't have an object longsword. So to make things simple, I'm going to duplicate our broadsword and call it item 2 longsword. I'm going to change the image to the GUI inventory longsword, and then go in here and change some instances. Show description is the same. The handler will be exactly the same, but I want to make sure that the texts also line up. So this is going to be longsword, and then ATK attack plus 10, and then action point cost is, wait, this is for the longsword, 7, no, 2, and the attack power is 7. But I also need to update the, because we changed the description on it, we also need to just change the description in 2 locations, unfortunately, but that's how it works. This is the broadsword, attack power is the same, ATK plus 10, but the APC is 3. Okay, let's close this. Here's the new one we're updating. We changed the string here to view menus variable longsword. Same thing, same thing. When we get this, we need to change longsword by adding 1 to it. And then the same particle effects can happen. I'm okay with that. And we destroy this instance. And does it need to be solid? I don't think it does, actually. Doesn't need to be persistent, doesn't need physics. Okay. Okay. Now we need a way to, like, now we have the object. Now there needs to be a way for it to be in the game. So I'll open up the keybinds and make another command by copy pasting this. Or you know what? Let me undo that. I'll just change this so that it doesn't spawn the... Actually, I want to be able to spawn the broadsword. Let's paste this and say insert, and we'll do keyboard check insert. So we are holding down insert, but also keyboard check pressed 2 VK 2. Does that work? No, I have to do ord 2, like that. So now if we're holding down insert and we press 2, it should spawn that. Might as well update this top one as well. Copy this, go here, paste this, and this is 1. So now we have to hold down insert and then press 1, 2, la da 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 for items to spawn. That makes more sense. So if we hold down insert, nothing happens, but if we press 1, I did something wrong here. Keyboard check, insert. Oh, okay, I have to be holding, wait, that's what I thought. They actually both have to be released in order at the same time for that to happen, which is not what I wanted. What if I go like this and say if keyboard check pressed ord 2? Like that. Oh wait, I messed one thing here. So I want to be able to hold down insert, nothing happened. But if I press 1, there it is. I press 2, press 2, press 1, press 2, presto. Got it. Okay, but let me change this to longsword. This has got to be item 2. There we go. So holding insert and then pressing on the numpad will let me spawn in items, at least, you know, for now. With this setup, I only have, what, 10 items? But I could do the same thing. Hold insert, 1 and another 1, and then spawns that in. So essentially, I can spawn in 100 items. I can do as many as I want, whatever. But this works. Let's test to see if it's set up correctly and our menu is okay. From the beginning, we have no items and nothing, no text shows. If we hover over the broadsword, it shows. We pick it up, it shows particle effects, and it adds. So let's hold down insert and press 2. Now it shows the longsword, and it's showing the longsword with its text and everything. And that looks okay. I kind of want to make the font one size bigger. What do you guys think? And then if I go over it, boom, it shows that I own it, and it also shows that. So the shadow box doesn't quite, or no, the shadow box is moving, but the font, the draw location isn't moving. So okay, I gotta fix that. Let's make the font one size bigger. We're divided here. We've got one guy say yeah, one guy say no. but I kind of feel like it needs to be Sora. I'm going to go with Joni on this. But I love you, Sora. I love you, man. Alright. Font description. It's set to 16. Let's put it at 18. Yeah. And let's fix where it's drawing. Keybind, that's a nice little dev command. We'll probably get rid of keybinds, or actually I'll just comment out the dev cheats before I deploy it. I think some of the dev cheats are actually still in Skyfaller. I forgot to take out dev commands. So there's like if you press, I forgot what buttons, but 2 buttons, one of them I think is L. It just gives you 10 extra guys. So there's some dev commands in Skyfaller on itch. I'm not going to chat. Let me see what's going on here. You can get all Cobblepot on your enemies. You can get a broom that does sweeping attacks. That's kind of funny, actually. Double hockey sticks. Joni says, I'm almost giving up and making a levitate animation. Maybe it's easier. Levitate animation. Couple questions. What engine are you using right now, Joni? I might have already asked you, sorry. And what are you trying to levitate? The player? Good to compensate power for ability. It works well. Talking about the weapon, ATKs, and APCs. Joni asks, hey Drift, will the player hold the sword and will only change the status? I think right now, I'm not going to draw the sword on the player. I think it'll just change the stats, because I need to keep this kind of like doable. I'm not trying to make the greatest RPG of all time, I'm just trying to make a simple RPG. The 2, it's O item 1, the second should be O item 2, right? Yes. O item 2, yeah. I think I caught that one though. Yeah. To do the art, I'm using a sprite. So you want to make a levitate animation? Is just like, are you drawing your sprite and then making him levitate or her levitate or it levitate? They levitate? I don't know. It's hard to tell anymore. So what was off? It was where it was drawing the text, wasn't it? The rectangle was drawing correct. Oh yeah, I didn't add plus next to the XX. That's all. That's the only place I messed up at. It should draw the text at the right location now. The black box should also move. So right here, broadsword. Hey, that looks good. That looks better. Slightly larger font size is better so the player can see, especially people like me who have got issues seeing. Boom. So that's there. I can actually bring it down a little bit more. It kind of feels like it's clipping into the top. It can be centered a little bit more. Let me hold down insert press 2 and get the longsword. Wow, why does the longsword font look so like it's clipped or something? It looks good in the menu. Oh, maybe I need to adjust something inside the object. Huh. Oh, I think I'm giving it a smaller space to draw it. It looks good here. Let's adjust so that it draws the text a little bit lower. We can also make the dim box a little bit thicker. So let's do that. Let's change the rectangle's opacity by making it just a little bit darker. So on the rectangle, the alpha, let's set the alpha to 0.5 on the rectangle. Put it back, and then say on the object longsword, where it's drawing the text, alpha 5 on that. The same thing with the broadsword. Let's put the alpha to 5 on that. This one looks good on the ground, but for some reason this one's not looking good on the ground. Why is that, I wonder? Is it because there's same number being shown, really? Should I add something to the X and the Y? It's putting this in the top left. Let's just say plus 15, plus 15. Let's see what happens here. We're trying to make it look good and kind of oh no, you definitely don't. I definitely don't want to add. I mean, the font looks better. I mean, it's not squished now. For some reason, it was squished. This looks right. This looks wrong. Huh. Oh, I have another issue. Certain items are appearing above the description, which is not what I want. Why is this item appearing above the description? Are these appearing on the... This shouldn't appear above the font and whatnot. Where is it drawing that object? Let me look at the... Got instances, top particle layer, GUI. I'm not drawing it to GUI, am I? When I press it... keybinds. Drawing it to inner instances, yeah. But then when you draw text over, and it's not like game breaking or anything. Right, so all I have to do, another reason why I wanted to use a variable to change, like a temporary variable to change where it's drawing, so that if I want to move them all in a direction, I don't have to go through 80 items and add like 3 pixels to them. I can just change YY by making it 48, and now they're all going to draw 16 pixels lower. So that looks good. Let's get that. Boom. Oh, it's drawing the... I put that in the wrong... This needs to be 32. Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, wait. We're drawing the shadow here. We can draw this, all of this, lower. Let's change the 48... Rectangle starts 40, 48. That's the rectangle, which is fine where it's at. But then when it's drawing this, I want it to draw it starting a little bit lower. So I'll just do a manual, even though I don't want to. I'll just add 8 pixels to the YY of all the show text. Let's see what happens. This is for the menu though. So right here it shouldn't affect it, and it doesn't. But over here, boom. It just looks better, in my opinion. Yeah, like, because now the broadsword text isn't all the way at the top. $32. Also, I think the negative 48 doesn't need to be that. Let's try negative 32. On the rectangle, that's what I'm talking about, the rectangle. Yeah, see, it's drawing the box even higher than that. So as I come down here, I don't want like this item to have a shadow that goes all the way up past this, so that's fine. Let's spawn in the longsword. This is what I'm talking about. Like for some reason, when you spawn an item in, the broadsword's never done that. It's just the longsword that's done that. Sometimes it spawns in looking weird. Like it's cutting off something. And then of course, I don't have a switch that's saying if you're already showing an item, don't show an item. So like if you look at it, you're like, wow, that looks really nice, but this is what happens when two items are right next to each other. You've got that. Do-do. At least the menu always seems to draw correctly, and it looks good. I really like that. I didn't put a comma on the broadsword. Do I need a comma? I think it looks better with a comma. But for some reason, it's not drawing the text right. That's barely legible. Maybe I changed the font again. I like the little pixel art font, but for some reason it's got some smushing errors. Let's take a look at our font. Darn it. Darn. Let's try one more fix before I change the font. Let's increase it to 20. That looks good still. Over here, looking good. Let's spawn in some items. Broadsword, longsword. Fix that. Maybe. Let's see. Looks good here. Looks good here. It wasn't always working. I mean, it wasn't always causing a problem. Let's try again with a boom, boom, boom. That looks fine. Looks fine. Looks fine. Maybe it was just that particular size. It wasn't able to do it right. Seems like it's working good now. So another thing is the player, it looks like the player's on top of the, this is a layering thing, and it has to do with where it's drawing them at. Because it's not drawing them to GUI level, it's drawing them to instance level. So if the player is back here, I think he draws me, it's behind it. Nope, it's not. It's always above it. The rectangle. We need to somehow draw the text at a different layer. What if we spawn the items in on the GUI layer? Will the text draw relative to where the object is at? Let's open up our keybinds, and instead of drawing them on the instances layer, what if we draw them to the GUI layer? In fact, I can just make a layer called item layer and put it underneath the GUI layer. This is just to simulate where it's drawing the items. Check that out. Right here, it's the player is below it, but that's not, just because it did it once doesn't mean it will always do it. Let me go over here where I was at and try again. So the fonts are looking good. The player is behind the rectangle and the font so that it appears that the font is above. I mean, it's not a huge deal, right? But I want to like fundamentally understand how all this stuff is working. And it has to do where the object is being spawned at. So if the object is on the GUI layer, which is above the instances layer, then the player will appear behind it. And also, like, even though when these collide, it disappears. If this was to not disappear, the sword would be on top of the player. But you don't notice that, so I'm okay with it because it disappears when you collide with an item. Good. This is cool. I'm really liking this. All right. Really, really good. I have to go pee. I will be right back. Thank you for your patience. So that's where we're at now. We've got the font size. I think that's good. We'll leave that for now. We've got a couple of items. We can see that this inventory system will work. All we have to do is make sure that we're drawing the items in the right location, drawing the rectangle in the right location, drawing the text in the right location, and making an object for every item and drawing the sprite for every item. Basically copy paste and add some minor details, and we have our whole inventory system set up, and I'm really happy with it. I like it. It's a very basic one. We can't drag and drop items around and move them around like they're always going to be in the spot that they're supposed to be in, but it works. And the thing I want to do next is let the player right click on them, and I can do the same kind of code that I'm checking for when the mouse is in X or Y location. I can check for that code, and I can put a check in there for if the player right-clicks on the mouse while that's happening. I can maybe toggle something to turn off the pop-up text and change the rectangle and draw like an alternate rectangle for options. And then it gets convoluted at this point. And then if I want to apply options inside there, I mean, I could draw text, or I can draw sprites and make the buttons with Photoshop. I'm thinking I'm going to have better luck just drawing sprites and making the buttons in Photoshop, and making those buttons objects, so I can make But the problem is, if I make them objects and I display them as objects, when the player's moving left or right, the buttons, like I'm going to right-click on a location, is going to draw objects. Then if I'm moving, the objects are going to stay where they are on the map. And so like they won't follow the GUI. So I have to make them as sprites, not objects. And that could be tricky. It's possible, though. I see how it's possible. So I should probably limit the number of things you can do when you right-click. Yeah, and I'll have to handcraft everything for every item, right? For this item, what can you do with this item? Well, you can equip this item, or if it's a potion, you can drink this item, or even drop. But would the player ever want to drop their items? I don't think so. So I won't even waste my time with adding that feature. Equipped, and if they are equipped, unequipped. And if they try to equip, it has to run a check to see if there's already one of those equipped. And if there is, then I have to like make it do nothing. More or less the game design question. What do I want to do with it? Obviously I want to have a lot of robust features, but I think what I actually have to do to make this game, keep in mind the scope of the game, I'm going to do something very simple. I'm going to right-click, erase the pop-up text, and by using a switch, and encapsulating that draw with that switch. So if I'm right clicking on that location, it turns that switch off. But then also if the mouse moves out of that location, it turns the switch back on so that it can be shown again as a failsafe. And once that switch is on, I'll have it draw something else. So it'll be like, if switch is on, draw the regular pop-up. If switch is off, don't draw that regular pop-up where it shows the name and the amount and the attack power, but instead show another box that has a couple of options that say equip or unequip, etc. And I kind of have to confine those buttons inside that 32 by 32 because of the nature of the way that I'm drawing everything. Because once the mouse goes into the next 32 by 32 grid, it's going to start reading a different item. So that's fine. I could limit the number of things that can happen to right-clicking an item to 2. Equip or unequip. Use, or some things will only have 1. Use. Okay, I think that's what I'll do. So let's get into the nitty-gritty of it. Let's start with the broadsword. Once I get the main code is like copy paste for the next item. Like making this one was very easy, right? We just kind of copy pasted this and changed a couple things. So let's go back into the broadsword, and this is our text pop-up. So what we need to do is create a switch on menu and call it, do I want to use the same switch for all of these? I think I could. Text pop-up disabled equals true. Or actually, we'll check. So let's go here, copy this, go to the create, and say menu open false, text pop-up disabled false, off by default. So if text pop-up disabled is true, which is, we could just say it like that, then we do this stuff. Which by default it is, so that would, everything will still work the same as if I didn't have this. So it'll actually read this code, but then it'll say if we're in this location, do all that. We want to basically check this again. Oh no, wait, this needs to be outside of it, or inside of it. Let me fix this. Let me clean it up. Sorry about it. Sorry about that. We're going to do, oh, come on. We're going to do these things if text pop-up is if text pop-up disabled is false. If text pop-up disabled, it's not disabled. So it's text pop-up enabled, but set false to default, so like this. And then we need another, this is probably incorrect, right? So it'll still work the same way so far, but now we've got a Boolean value that we can toggle somehow, probably by checking for a right click, that will turn all of this off. So how do we toggle this switch? Probably right click. So if we're doing all of this, the mouse is right there, then we do that. Oh, okay. And what we can do is before this, Kang, if mouse check button released while in this spot, VK, or no, imp, what is it, M right, MB right, mouse button right, okay? So in here, we can say if we check that mouse button right, wait, where are we having an issue here? Oh, I need another one of these. So if we're in that 32 by 32 grid and we right click our mouse button, we're basically going to set text pop-up disabled equals true, and that's going to turn off that show text. And then we show another show. We do the same thing, but for what we want it to do. We want to equip or unequip. We can kind of take these two out of here. No, they do need to be there, yeah, because I'll change it through other options, and these need to say, right before I draw this, set it to this. So essentially, I'd have to do the same thing again here. I mean, it feels like redundancy, but it's necessary. You have to constantly set your font and your color and all your stuff before you draw text, because other things are going to change that. So it's just a good practice to, right before you draw your text, you always select the way you want it to look, and then you draw it. Okay. We also, now we're going to draw a background. So we're going to draw our alpha. And we're going to draw a rectangle, but we're going to draw a rectangle at a different location than this. We're going to draw a rectangle at the same location of that grid, of that 32 by 32. So in the first item, it's essentially going to start it at XX and YY and go to XX plus next, YY plus next, or 32. And this is not an outline, this is just going to be a solid rectangle, but it's see-through. So it's going to draw a shadow over that tile, over that 32 by 32 grid. And inside there, we're going to do two draw texts, and we're going to have to or, you know, we can make it even simpler. We only draw one thing. So if we right-click on it and then we left-click on it to do the thing, we're controlling it that way. So if we have it equipped, it'll show item equipped, and it'll give you the option to unequip. But if it's not equipped, it'll let you try to equip it. But then I also do a check to see if you already have something equipped in that slot, then do nothing. So if you try to equip it, maybe it'll actually say, I'll do a quick text pop-up that says something already equipped in that location. Or, actually, if you try to equip it, I mean, if I do it this way with one button, it simplifies it so that I have like half the amount of work for this section for up to 80 items. Is that worth taking the functionality of the player? Here's the inconvenience of the player. You right-click an item, and you try to equip it, but you currently have a different thing on. So instead of just taking that thing off and putting the new one on, it doesn't do that. And you have to go to the other item, unequip it, and then go to the new one and equip it. So that's an inconvenience to the player. But also, what's the scope of our project? It's going to save, if each one of these is going to be like, say, 10 lines of code, it's going to save me from having to do 800 lines of code, potentially. So is that inconvenience worth saving 800 lines of code? I think it is. I think it is. It's going to be more simple, but it's going to save a lot of code. It's going to save a lot of time to get it done. Godot does use, Godot uses Python. It uses a pseudo Python. It's called GD script. It's really good, really clean. You'll learn it quick. It doesn't have any of this brackets and curly stuff, and it works on spacing, and it's actually really good. I love it. You're going to have less syntax errors because it's clean. It's like, you don't have to do any inlines. Like, you don't need inlines anywhere. You don't have to do any curly braces. You just have to space your stuff right. Like you see, I've got this space, and then this space, and this space. Like, you just got to do that. And it's easy to see because it'll have an arrow down and an arrow across. So eliminate these curly brackets, eliminate inlines, eliminate some other hassle in code, and that's what GD script is. It's really clean. So, okay, so I've decided I'm going to make it so that it's just one option. You right-click it, and you get the 32 by 32 gets shadowed, and it's going to draw one option in there, just one. That'll let me be able to fit longer words in there, too. So I have to do if currently, I have to make some new variables. So these are going to be items for the inventory. Here it's going to be equipment, equip handler, wearing weapon. You don't wear a weapon. Holding weapon equals false. Wearing body armor equals false. Wearing helmet equals false. Wearing accessory equals false. And then saying, hey, you're not using these anywhere. I know, not yet. So this is like, how many slots do I want? Let the player wear a weapon, a helmet, body armor, and accessory. Let's keep it simple. 4 things. You can equip a weapon, a helmet, a body armor, and an accessory. Okay. So since this is a weapon, so text pop-up disabled, true. This is the rectangle. We've got the rectangle drawn. We're going to set our alpha again. Back to 1. And then we're going to draw text shadow. X, X. But we're going to say YY plus, we wanted to center in that 32 by 32. So we'll say YY plus 15. So it brings it down, right? I don't know, let's try plus 8 for now. Plus 12. 16 is half, but like the font is going to start at the bottom, go up, I think. I don't know, we'll change it. And it's going to say equip. And that's it. Because it only has 32 pixels to put that whole thing. Okay, anyway, let's finish this out. It'll say it in white font with a black shadow. One border, 1 pixel range at the angle of 315. Okay, so now it'll show that instead. Then what? If at any time we have to turn off text pop-up disabled at some point. So what we can do inside of here, when we right click, we're disabling that. We also have to go like this, the same box. Copy this and put it right underneath the disabled. Boom. If at any point in time this entire thing returns as false, we need to text pop-up disabled equals false, because we've left the bounds of that. Because otherwise, when we right-click on it a single time, it will make it so that it's never visible again when we hover over it. We only want to disable the show text while we right-clicked it to see a different text pop up. So now it's just going to show equip, but we need to add the functionality. So we say if mouse check button MB left. What happens in here? Wait, what am I missing? Do we need this for this one, and then this is for that one, and this is for this one, and this is for that one? Yep. And then this, like that, right? Mm-hmm. It's getting like already spaghetti monster, right? It's getting a little spaghetti monster. You're like, what is even happening here? But like, it all makes sense. What am I missing? What's going on here? I need to make a new PFP. Don't like the ones I have on right now. Cool sort of says, do you have a suggestion for me? So anyone else I should make a me? I don't know what you're talking about. A me? What's a me? What's an MII? Is that like a Nintendo Me character or something? I don't know, Cool Sora. So like the functionality, if we right click it, it disables the show text of attack and all that, and then it shows another box. Inside that box it'll say equip. And then what happens if you left click now while you're in this, because if at any time you leave, it turns this off. Is it going to erase this box though? Do you think you can make some Fire Emblem characters? Joni says you can use region to organize better the code. Region? You mean like comments? Or like, hold on, region? What? Is this a macro? You can just make macro region? You can select your own regions. Oh yeah. Oh my gosh, but I already like got so much stuff happening. gosh, what a crappy help link. I clicked on region and it went to the script editor. Like, what? Region and then end region. Like, how do I use it though? Hold up. You can't hashtag search. Okay, region. DS, so data structure grid add region. This function can be used to add a given value to all the values of the cells found within the defined area of a grid. DS grid add region index, so that's like the number of the region, start with 0 I suppose, x1, y1, x2, x2, and then value, the value to add to the region cells. I don't understand the value to add to the region cells. This would add dots to all the strings held in the cells within the defined region of the DS grid reference for the variable grid. Grid 2455 dot. So we would use DS grid add region 0 and then put in like the starting point of the X and Y in the top left and then the ending point in the bottom right. But then what would I put for value? 0? I mean, and how do I reference that as, like, this makes sense. It looks like this is what I should be using for something like this. But I can't wrap my head around how I use this to do what I'm doing. Set region. And then I can say if region equals this. So I don't have to, so in the place of if this, you just say if region equals 1, then this. And then you set your region, and then instead of saying if all of this, you just say if region is not 1. Like, I think that makes more sense. But I need to look up and read and like maybe watch a tutorial on it before I try to throw it in here. But thank you so much, Joni and Jay. Let me write this down. Learn regions. Learn to use region. Now I'll look it up later on. That's good. Thank you. Right, hashtag region name, all content here. Hashtag in region name, this will hide the content and better organize it. It's like to like hide your code so it doesn't look like Spaghetti Monster, right? Right. I'll watch like a 5-minute tutorial and then I'll be like, oh, I'm dumb. Okay, easy. Boom. But I'm going to continue working on this the way I have it set up now because like I understand this and it should work just fine. I'm going to keep moving along. Take care, Nick. Thanks for coming. So anyway, if we're on that and then we click with the left button, what do we want to happen? I guess now we have to define our stats, don't we? Player stats. Player max, or no, we're not going to use underscores. Max HP equals 100 times 100 plus. We actually need to do a level. Player level equals 1 plus 10 times player level. Player HP equals player max HP. From the start, we'll say player max MP equals 10 plus 2 times, or we'll say 20. 20 plus 2 times player level. Player MP equals player max MP. We'll say player AP equals 10, and we'll just set it to 10 for now. Or we'll need a max AP too, huh? Player max AP equals 10, and then player AP is player max AP. Player attack equals 1. Player defense equals 1. Player, AP is like our speed and things like that. Attack, defense, magic attack equals 1. Player magic defense equals 1. We'll set them to 3. Or why not 5? Okay, so we've got some numbers that we can look at. Do I want to have like a base attack and then current attack? Simplicity tells me I shouldn't. Like if I wanted to get more complex, I'd have a base attack and then a modified attack and whatnot. But let's just stay with basic numbers. You know, current, max, and stat numbers. So attack, defense, magic attack, magic defense. That's pretty much it. We'll keep it simple. We'll add some elements too, like fire, wind, water, and heart, because you gotta have heart. JK, bro. So if we equipped the broadsword, we're gonna say player attack plus equal 10. Actually, we have to see if we are currently equipped anything. If wearing weapon, or holding weapon. If holding weapon, actually we have to say if we're not holding a weapon, then we increase the player's attack by 10. Else, it will just right-click menu. So if we right-click, then we're going to say right-click menu equals enabled, true. Right-click menu is true. Let's go here and say right-click menu equals false. This will let us control this one as well. So we disable the text pop-up and we enable the right-click menu. Make another check. if at any point in time we are out of this bound, then we're going to say right-click menu is false, and text pop-up disabled is false. So it enables the, yeah, like I like that they're all false, so they're set to 0. Take care, Jay. Right, else we're going to say right click menu equals false. Oh, not only that, but now we have to say holding weapon equals true. So we give the player 10 attack and we say now you're holding a weapon. So if you were to click it again, it wouldn't work because this has to be false to do this. And we need to set up a condition inside of here as well. If right-click menu is false, or wait, if right-click menu is true, then we show all of this. This code is getting looking weird, man. But that's, I mean, that's programming. You just look at one little thing, one little thing, one little thing. And then, like, you can't memorize all of this. Like, you just have to figure it out as you go. And think, like, logically, okay, well then what happens if this? And what if the player does that? And what if they press this and do that? Etc. What if I press escape during any of all of this? I have to reset something, right? So also, what I could do is make sure that when the player presses escape and when they say menu open is set to false, so we've closed the window, we want to make sure that text pop-up disabled is false and right-click menu is also false. Text pop-up disabled false, right. So as a failsafe, because the player can press escape in the middle of any of that process, so when they do, we need to say, okay, the menu's not open, but also the right-click menu is also not open, and the text pop-up disabler isn't on, so like when you hover over it, next time it'll show it. So if some bug happens, you can always close the menu and open it, and it'll show you again as a failsafe there. But what? Okay, so the functionality is all right here. If we're not holding a weapon, when we right-click it and we click equip, then the player will get 10 attack and it'll register as holding the weapon. But we also want to save a variable as a string. See, that's a Boolean. So what we can do is holding weapon, Boolean, true or false, but then we'll say current weapon equals nothing. We'll just do that. An empty string. But we declared this variable as an empty string. So current helmet equals nothing. Current body armor equals nothing. But we're declaring these variables. Current accessory equals nothing. So we can use them. And when we equip this, we can say you get 10 attack, you're now holding a weapon, and your current weapon is set to broadsword. So if we are able to make our status menu or our equip menu, we can show what weapon we're wearing. One more thing we have to do is text pop-up disabled needs to be set to false at the same time as we're disabling the right-click menu, so that you're hovering over it and you tell it to do something, you don't have both of the boxes go away. Like when one goes away, the other one comes up, and so forth and so on. I'm probably going to crash. I did a ton of code here, and I don't know if I even did it right. Okay, wait, we've got a simple unexpected symbol and expression on line 100. Okay, so the last one isn't set up right. So this is good, this is good. It's probably here, to be honest. This is probably where we're getting a problem. So this one, let's start from the inside out. So we've got an open, and this is closing here. That's an open, close here. And then this one's there. This one is this whole chunk. This one's self-contained. Right, come on. Yep, that's self-contained. I gotta shorten this window. This one is set to be the mouse button. And then right here is this one. And then broadsword, open, so this should be here, and this should not be anywhere. Why is this one inside of here? I'm sure there's a reason why it's supposed to be here. If text pop-up is disabled, oh my gosh, this is weird. Where is this supposed to land? This whole section of code. If the text pop-up is disabled, it's set to be right here. Should be right here. This code should be right here. Which now it looks right. Yeah, now it looks right. And because see, now this is still a part of if broadsword greater than 0. Because this is all broadsword stuff. And then it closes that, which the entire thing is encapsulated with a menu as a menu opened. It looks right now. Let's fix it, or let's run it and see what happens. Oh my god, it ran! It's gonna crash. It works. Oh my god, it works! Oh, but now it's just showing that. It's just showing that no matter if we're hovering over it or not. And right-clicking it, to be fair, this is about what I expected. Right-click, that's only on one frame. It needs to toggle. It needs to make another switch. Right-click menu, right-click option. Right-click option available or visible. Gosh, right-click option available is a long name for a variable, but I mean, I understand what's happening. This needs to be not right here. It needs to be, let me cut it, it needs to be right here instead. Like this, or wait, no, like this. Okay, let's save that. That fixed that one error, but there's another error in here. The other error is when we right click it, like it does this for one frame. Like when we right click this, it shows it for one frame. I mean, that doesn't... Where is right-click menu being disabled right here? So is it this code that's causing it to disappear? Let me just go like this. Obviously, I have to address what happens if you just pull the mouse out. That works. You get it. It doesn't constantly show like that. Okay, that's not what's causing it to disappear like that. Okay, so let's fix this. Boom, 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 boom. Something's causing it to make all of this disappear. Right-click menu. If you right-click, then the text pop-up becomes disabled. The right-click menu is true. So if the right-click menu is true, it should show this until it's told to not be true. Plus 12, y plus 12. Trying to figure out why this is immediately disappearing. Oh, every step of the game, it's telling me to. So we're saying if we're not on the title screen and we're pressing escape, and we pressed escape. No. When we press escape, then if the menu is open, set it true. If the menu is, let's see, else if menu opened, then do that. something's like, okay, so it's clearly drawing it, but then like it disappears immediately, like something's turning a switch off that's causing it to do the thing. When we press escape and we're not on the title screen, then set menu open to true if the menu's closed. And then maybe we don't put this here. I don't know. We'll just change this back to else. See what happens. I mean, that's not necessarily it. And I will need some kind of handler for when you just kind of like close the menu while it's like selected or something. Like there's some way to cheat your stats up, right? I want to make sure I don't knowingly put in exploits. Game-breaking exploits. The whole right-click menu thing is something I've never tried to code in GMS2. So if, I mean, because we're setting it to true, so like you only have to right-click once. Mouse check button released. Let's just say mouse check button. Okay. So release the mouse button. And then that says turn off the text pop-up and right-click menu, turn it on to true. So if the menu is true, then we're going to do this stuff, show the text, and then say if the mouse check button is left. But like it disappears before it. Oh, if we're not pressing the left button, oh, I have to go like this. Else if we're holding a weapon, not just else if anything happens, like so when this opens, I get it. Like so this is saying we turn on a switch, show this stuff, and then if we're pressing left button at that very moment, then check to see if we're holding a weapon. If we're not, do the stuff. But otherwise, if we don't press left click as soon as it opens, then turn it off and close it. So I have to say, else if we're holding a weapon, when we left click, turn it off and close the button. But not else without any other if condition there, right? I get it now. So look, this works as long as I have I gotta change, I gotta put a new font in for something. Maybe not, maybe not. It'll just draw it above it, that's fine. Equip. So I've got it like this now, where something is, while I'm holding it down, the switch is on, otherwise it's turning the switch off. I'm gonna keep messing with it and try to figure it out. Really happy with the progress we made today. It's kind of cool. We put in some more particles. We are working on our menu. So if we hover an item over an item, it shows the player what the item does. We can close and open the menu right here. We've got 80 item inventory slots. We can go over an item, particle effects play, and it adds to the number we own. We can hover over it with left click, or with the mouse button. Oh my god. We can hover over it with the mouse and it shows the text. If we right click it, we have the option to equip it, which I believe it does. It is equipping it now, but it's just we have no way to represent, to show our stats yet. So I mean, I have to figure out this. So I'm holding right click to get this, and I don't want that to happen. I want to right click and that just stays like that, and then if I move away, then it disappears like it did. Or if I left click it, I right click it and then I left click it to equip it, then it does and gives some sort of notification saying like, okay, you're currently hold a weapon, or you have it equipped now, or maybe like put another border to show that this item is currently equipped. Anyway, I got it in the live stream. Thank you guys so much for coming to the live stream. I really appreciate it. If you like to support what I do here on this channel, I have a Patreon. Links in the description below. Check out the patreon.com/driftwoodgaming. Yeah, like this video, like this live stream, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you want more content like this, and I'd love to see you in the Discord. Come hang out in the Discord and show off your stuff and the self-promo chat room and all the other stuff. Gotta go, guys. Thank you so much for coming to the live stream. Joni Spam, thank you. Jazz Minx, Cool Sora, Varo Claw, Jay Babel, Nix Sensed. Scrolling now. You guys are very vocal. I appreciate it. I like the interaction. Thank you so much. Volpe, thank you for showing up and saying hi. I don't know if you're still here. Jeremiah Black, thank you so much. Good luck with your new project. Remember to keep the scope narrow. 3D Modeler, thanks for tuning in. Katarina, thank you so much. Skepsis D, Black Bullet Studios, Robert B. Sorry if I forgot your name. Fortnite Mapper, Autopot. Everybody, thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye. I always forget to click these. WH subscribed, thank you. Rubens Caminati subscribed, thank you so much. Bye, guys.